Following the conclusion of the 2023 general election, the All Progressives Congress, APC, has dissolved its Presidential Campaign Council. The APC-PCC was inaugurated September 2022 with the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lano, as the Director General and James Falike as its Secretary. The APC-PCC expresses appreciation to President Muhammadu Buhari for his unwavering support and leadership throughout the campaign, saying the party could not have achieved this level of success without his single-mindedness, commitment, and forthrightness. The council also thanked members, leaders, and supporters for working assiduously for the resounding victory of the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. The dissolution of the APC-PCC is coming right on the heels of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu's arrival in the country today, Monday evening, barring any unforeseen circumstances. The president-elect had left the country to take a break after a hectic campaign and election season to rest in Paris and London, preparatory to going to Saudi Arabia for Umrah de Hajj and Ramadan fasting. With the May 29 inauguration less than 35 days away, joining us on this show this morning to discuss what the focus will be for the APC and the president-elect as we approach the handover to a new government is Ayobami Oyalowo. Welcome to the morning show, Ayobami Oyalowo. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Dr. Abati. I am not a development analyst. I'm a development economist.
Oh,
I think you
okay.
got that wrong.
Well, the producer said you are a development analyst. Don't worry. Just claim the two. Development economist, development analyst. They are both relevant. And you are here to do analysis. And let's start by asking you.
No, Allah.
Do you have any concrete, certain information that the president-elect, who became president-elect on the platform of your party, will be back in Nigeria today? Because it's like James Falike, James Falike was saying, oh, it is likely. Why are you people not so sure, where your money is and when certainly it will return? And secondly, criticism has been raised about the transition committee that he has put together. I saw someone, I think it's Daniel Bwala of the People's Democratic Party saying that why is it that out of the 13 disciples, our Lord Jesus Christ had 12, but Tinubu has added the 13th one. Okay, why is it that there's nobody from the southeast on that list? That's the question that Daniel Bwala asked. Those two issues to set off the conversation.
Dr. Abati, let me be very nice first so that when we start pugilistic part, we will go there. But clearly we are aware that the president-elect is coming in today. As I speak with you, members of the party who are to receive him are being cleared as from a certain hour today so that they can all be at the airport to receive the president-elect and his wife. They are both coming in together today. So that is not a debatable topic any longer. And as for the criticism by Daniel Bwala, I don't know why I have to respond to a busybody criticism. He's not a member of our party. He doesn't support us. He has left. So why is he so interested or invested in whatever we do? However, to clear the doubt because of reasonable members of the society that will be listening to this, the committee you see is not the transition committee. It is the event management committee. The transition committee will still be unveiled very soon. So let nobody begin to unnecessarily jumpstart the event. What you saw was just a 13-man committee for gathering and getting ready for the event. You will have the full committee later on, and then you are going to have subcommittees too. So this is not the full committee, and Daniel Bwala has no authority to speak on whatever we are doing or we are about to do. So I don't really like to respond to nosy podcasts, but unfortunately, because it's on national TV, I have to clear the doubt so that other members of society can hear and understand that he doesn't speak for us and he doesn't understand what we are doing or what we are saying.
All right, well, he doesn't speak for you, but he's in the opposition, and that is the role of the opposition, to question certain actions and decisions. So he wasn't speaking for you. He was asking questions as he ought to, which is well within his rights. But let me go to my own question. And just to say that a few days after winning the presidential election, you'd written an open piece with regards to now that you have won, next steps. You said that you're a part of the Public Affairs Committee of the PCC, APC-PCC, and that you were quite vocal in terms of the work that the president-elect would do on resumption. What would you say should be his priority areas? So there's so many issues plaguing the nation at the moment, and that's why I'd like you to share with us, in terms of priority, what should he focus on? There's the issue of the economy, issue of insecurity, issue of infrastructure, wages, so many issues bedeviling the nation at the moment. What should be his priority? What are his quick wins in the first few months of taking office?
Ayo, you have got to research your namesake, right? Because those questions came from what I wrote the last time when he won. That was the piece I released. That's a good one. I like that. Thank you very much. His priorities, like I listed in in my write-up to him, is to focus on the things you have said. And I think he already got his priority right. He has said it in his acceptance speech. He has said the things he wants to do. And I must also add that he is going to be youth-centric in his approach. If you check the members of the committee that you just mentioned now, the 13 members, you see that a good number of them are young people. If you take out about 3 people, the remaining 10 people are very young. They are under 40, under 50. So you can see that this administration will be youth-focused and will be based on competence and ability to deliver. So some of the things I think Asiwaju will be focusing on, like you rightly averred, will be the economy. And we all know what has transpired in the last couple of months. We've had a Naira problem, we've had petroleum issues, but all those things are issues that he has already said what he will do. One, it is about removal of the subsidy and then creating palliative and enabling environment to cushion whatever effect will be felt from that action. I believe some of the things he will be doing, and which the Transition Committee, when it is fully unveiled, will also be doing, is to look out for ways to clear and ensure that when the subsidy is fully removed, people don't get jolted and there is no unnecessary shock in the lives of our citizens. And also, in terms of infrastructure, like you rightly averred, this current outgoing government has done a lot, but there is still a lot more to be done in terms of building rails, in terms of building roads. And I must, at this junction, stop and say Nigerians should also be of help. We have seen several pictures, videos, and arrests made of people who go out to remove rail tracks. I don't think a nation that is seeking development can handle citizens who are deliberately destructive. So please, this is an appeal to Nigerians. While the government is building rails, please stop removing the ions and go and sell it for whatever it is they are doing. So now going into some other areas, insecurity, he has also said what he will do in terms of building the army, strengthening the paramilitary and all sorts. And the biggest thing that Asiwaju will also do in terms of the economy is to ensure that jobs are not just created. The people, especially the young people, have a sense of belonging. One, he's talked about the fact that he's going to ensure that in terms of education, there will be no more strikes because the universities will now have their autonomy and people who need student loan to be able to access education will be offered such opportunities. Also, for young people who work, you will not need to steal in your office to buy a house. You will not need to steal in your office to buy a car. There's going to be a consumer system that will be put in place so that a young person who needs to buy a car, let's say a 4 million naira car, does not have to commit a crime where he's working. All he needs to do is that you have a stable income, and with that, you can get credit facility offered to you to purchase whatever you need. So these are issues. There are bigger things that will be done, but Asiwaju has clearly put it in writing, and he has put it in the front burner as things that we are looking at. And some of the areas that have been issues for us, because if you deal with consumer, if you deal with jobs, you will clearly and automatically reduce corruption. And those are areas that he's looking at. So those are the focus. And like I tell everyone who cares to listen, Asiwaju is a man who is prepared for the job. He will clearly hit the ground running. And like President Buhari has said, all of you should please stop disturbing him when he leaves. He wants to rest, and if you don't let him rest, he has told you what he's going to do. So let's put the focus on Asiwaju in the next 35 days.
Okay, and we will indeed scrutinize Asiwaju. Good to see you, Mr. Oyalowo. A couple of things. You talked about the possibility of a credit economy. I said in an economy where over 40% of the young people don't have jobs, is that why you're going to build credit economy? How viable is that? Because that's dependent on jobs and infrastructure creation, for the people. Secondly, part of the campaign promises was a 12% GDP growth. And I am really concerned about that. Personally, I think it's almost impossible, because as of today, we are not even growing 5-6%. And we're talking 12% economic growth. Talk to me about that. And how should I trust this administration, incoming administration, on job creation, when this same APC told us they were going to create 3 to 4 million jobs, but they failed woefully on it, and people lost more jobs in the country? An unemployment rate that was pegged at less than 15% a couple of years ago has snowballed into over 40%. And in 4 quarters, as we speak today, the Bureau of Statistics have not released job numbers. And I dare them to release it, because those numbers are abysmal.
If you are daring them, maybe you should call the person running the place. That's not my job. I don't know whatever you are daring them for. That's their problem, not mine. So now, to answer your question in terms of job creation, Asiwaju has stated clearly what a government should do. You see, we keep forgetting that we have 3 tiers of government. When you keep talking about job, have you asked state governors what have they done in terms of job creation? And when you talk about job creation, we always look at only the white-collar jobs. See, let me quickly bring you back to where we were before President Buhari became president. When President Buhari, before he became president, our entire grain crops in Nigeria, if not entire, but at least over 90%, was imported. As I speak today, that has been removed. We have empowered farmers, but of course, nobody thinks about farmers. You keep thinking people who don't work in ministries and government agencies are jobless. However, go and check the statistics. In the last 5 years, especially, I'm going to use the North as an example in this area, to know who is wealthy in the North. One of the things that you have to look at is the ability to go for Umrah, to go for Hajj. Go and check the last 5 years. The highest number of people from the North who have gone on Hajj have been farmers who were empowered, especially rice and grain farmers. So it's easy to sit down and talk about jobs. Creating job is not only for people to get job in ministry and wear collar job. Go to church and wear shirt. Please don't interrupt me. Let me finish. Okay. I have a train of thought. I'm going somewhere. And also, if you don't let me talk, then don't ask questions. I have to go somewhere. Please. That's why I didn't interrupt you. Now, if you're talking about job creation, you have to look at the plans Asiwaju has for job creation. What are those plans? He has earmarked Nigeria into 6 geopolitical zones, and he's looking at competitive advantage of each zone. If you look at the manifesto that was drawn out, every zone has a competitive advantage. And what he will do is to empower the zones, going through the governors and ensuring that jobs are created. So we can't dump everything on the federal government. Like the rice issue I just mentioned, we know that the government of Kebbi State, for instance, took rice production as a huge deal. And the governor, alongside the president and the CBN, were able to empower farmers. So we must also question what our state governors are doing in terms of job creation. And now you also talk about trusting this government. What I want to ask you is this. Before Asiwaju became governor of Lagos State, what was the IGR and the earnings of Lagos State? It was less than 600 million. What was the infrastructural development of Lagos State? What were the life indices and expectation in Lagos State? Now you have to look at what it was in 1999 and what it was today. Now, if this man was the architect of what we are seeing today, yes, his successors must have built on what he has built. But as a visionary and the architect of what we are seeing today, if he did it then why should we not trust him to do it again? He was a man who was able to run a state which despite the president of that period holding on to the allocation of the state for 3 years, despite Supreme Court judgment, yet he was able to fund the state, raise the IGR, and today, Lagos State has an economy that is number 5 in Africa. By the time you take out Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria, Lagos comes 5th, bigger than Ghana, bigger than Togo, bigger than Cote d'Ivoire as an economy. That is just one state that this man envisioned and built from 600 million IGR. So clearly what I'm telling you is that we can trust him because he has promised that he will do it. And he's not just promised, he has highlighted how he will do it, and there are time frames attached to it. Now, I'm talking about your GDP growth that you say 12%. He didn't say he will grow the GDP 12% today. But what he said is that cumulatively over time, everything was stated. He gave you the number of years. By the first year, it will be this. By the next year, and if you check the current release by the World Bank, Nigeria has already been marked to grow 3.2, which was about number 2 or number 3 on that list. Looking at world, because you cannot isolate Nigeria from what is going on in the world. But despite the turmoil in the world, Nigeria was marked to grow 3.2% based on the World Bank statistics.
Okay, so my follow-up will be, are you saying that people going for Umrah and Hajj is a benchmark for wealth creation in the north or job creation? Because when you look at the statistics, the poverty indices say that there are more poor people in the northern part of Nigeria in the last 8 years than any time. Take, for instance, Sokoto, poverty rate inches up to the high numbers over 80%. So what is that benchmark all about? The pure and simple, even despite agricultural job creations, hang on, let me finish, please. Despite agricultural job creations, there's still massive unemployment and poverty in the land. Let me put it to you. I know that federal workers alone do not make up the bulk of the job. That's just 720,000 workers, according to IPs in the federal government. But other parts of the economy is still suffering, even those in the agricultural sector. Is it people that have not been able to plant because of insurgency and criminality? Is it the 100 farmers in Zabamari and the likes? And now you are saying Umrah is a benchmark for wealth creation?
Are you done?
You have the floor.
Thank God you mentioned Sokoto. Okay, thank God you mentioned Sokoto, and thank God we both agree that the governors must involve themselves in wealth and job creation. I use Kebbi, which was an APC governed state. Sokoto is governed by a man from the PDP. Maybe you should ask him why his state has 80% poverty, because you can't put that on the federal government. You will, like I told you clearly, the Kebbi state governor, who is an APC governor, was an example and is still an example of what the APC can do if you decide to work. Go and check some of the states that has done well in agriculture. You look at Kebbi, you look at Niger State, you look at Gombe State, and so on and so forth.
Kebbi has 72% poverty.
The state government must...
Kebbi has 72% poverty rate.
It's easy to sit...
Kebbi has 72% poverty rate. Yeah, you can go ahead. Finish.
Can I finish?
Go ahead, yeah.
You can throw these statistics if it makes you feel better. But I can tell you this clearly. Kebbi has enough rice to feed the entire Nigeria today. And if you are talking about poverty, most times we always deliberately forget that we have both formal and informal economy. And because you don't always want to factor those informal economy into the system, you just put them as poor, because somebody sit down somewhere and say anybody who doesn't earn $1 per day is poor. Meanwhile, the man who doesn't earn $1 can feed you because he doesn't earn money, but he has enough to feed you. So looking at that is why we have spoken and we have told whoever is in charge of the Bureau of Statistics, there are ways that you have to ensure that whatever you are using is homegrown and can work with us. Go to my village now. You will say, oh, they are poor because they don't earn $1. But these guys have enough in their farms to last you and I for the entire year. But they don't have money in their hands, yet they can feed you. So what we must now do is to find a way of factoring these people into the system so that you can actually benchmark them against more agreeable indices, not the bland $1 per day stuff that was fed down to us by some people.
Oyalowo,
thank you.
I need you to calm down. Doctor? You know, you were 50 years old just about 2 days ago. You know, but that's another subject. We will still discuss.
And you didn't wish me happy birthday, so you know.
No, I'm wishing you happy birthday now. And we will discuss the implications, you know, because you can't just be 50 and get away with it like that, you know. You have to celebrate it. But I want to ask you, earlier on this program this morning, we were talking about president-elect, presidential candidates making promises.
Yeah.
And your candidate, now Nigeria's president-elect, has made a lot of promises. Now, some of those promises, can we be confident that he will keep them? One, removal of fuel subsidy. Is he going to have the courage to remove fuel subsidy? Student loans. Where is he going to get the money from? APC promised student loans in 2015. Asiwaju Tinubu has done so again now in 2023. Where's the money going to come from? He says he will increase production of crude oil to about 4 million barrels per day. Nigeria has never done anything above 2.2 million barrels per day. So the manifesto, are we going to go through another cycle of empty promises so that, you know, your candidate will come tomorrow and say, well, those were campaign promises? That's not how it's done elsewhere. I've cited just 3 issues. Can you assure us that it will deliver?
Let me answer the 3 issues. Let me answer the 3 issues. You asked about the student loan and asked where the money will come from. But you and I just agree now that does he have the courage to take away the subsidy? If we are able to remove the amount of trillions that we have pumped into subsidy, you know clearly there will be money available for some other areas. So yes, there will be money available to handle the student loans and create opportunity for students to access such loans. Then you also talked about, what was the third thing, please?
I asked about production of crude oil.
Production of crude oil.
Over 4 million barrels per day. How is he going to do that?
You said the highest we've done has been 2.2 million. But you must remember that we have just discovered crude oil in some other places other than the traditional Niger Delta of recent, Gombe, and I think I can't remember the other state in the north. So we have enough. You now need to do.
What they are doing there is exploration. No. They've not discovered in commercial. They've not discovered in commercial quantity.
The one in Gombe is no longer exploration.
But not in commercial quantity.
The one in Gombe is no longer exploration. Anyway, if you bring in stability to the system, and you remember when President Buhari first came on, it got so bad that we were producing less than 800,000 barrels per day because of problem at the Niger Delta. If you are able to bring in stability into crude oil production area, and don't also forget that the bill that has become a sing-song for hundreds of years in the National Assembly has been finally passed and approved, and is no longer a bill, is now a full working document. If you are able to implement this, while I don't know whether we can do 4 million, I know you can increase from the 2.2 million barrel gradually. And in 4 years, you never can tell where we can hit. So I believe that most of these promises are, and I insist, are deliverables. And if we have the system put in place like President Buhari has done, because he was unfortunate not to have this kind of system put in place. Now, Asiwaju is luckier in the sense that President Buhari has put in more stability in place for him to inherit. And don't also forget that when Buhari came in, we had almost an empty treasury. We were also selling crude as bad then as at $25 per barrel. So hopefully we won't have this kind of problems in the system when Asiwaju comes in. And also, do not forget, he's not just talking about crude oil, he's not talking about gas, building gas pipeline from here to Europe. And I must remind you that President Buhari has started something along that line. So it is just behove on Asiwaju to come in and improve on it. And if we're able to do that, clearly we will not just talk about crude oil, we'll also talk about mass gas production that will earn Nigeria enough money to do other things at home. And we're also looking at reduction of importing goods that are fully produced to ensure that we incentivize most of these companies and producers to come into Nigeria and produce in Nigeria, so that one, it will reduce our wastage of foreign exchange. It will also create jobs. They will pay taxes, and our young people will have experiences where they can work. Because what we do currently now in Nigeria is harmful to our economy. We import almost everything that we consume. It's something that we want to put a stop to. And Asiwaju has put in a system that when it is fully activated, you will begin to understand that yes, Nigeria can actually become a mass producer of goods, not just for Nigeria consumption, but for the entire Africa and West Africa especially. So that is the plan, to make us the hub of production in Africa. And I can assure you, Asiwaju can be trusted. He's done it before. He will do it again.
Okay, this student loan that you say, savings from removal of subsidy, would people like me, I will go back to school again to take another degree. And I expect that you people will pay, will pay my fees.
As long as you are willing to pay back when you are done with your school.
Why not? Why not?
After your PhD,
every Nigerian student now, we are looking forward to that student loan. Starting from when you people.
Student loan should be strictly for undergraduates, not for all of us Agbayas that have read before. Even me, it's not for me. It's not for you. Okay. It's for young men and women.
No, there's no limit to education.
All right, real quickly, Mr. Oyalowo, a quick fact check for you. And
at our own level, our education should be funded by us.
Okay, real quickly, quick fact check for you before I ask a question. You said KB will be able to feed Nigeria. That's not true. That's false. Based on the fact check, KB does 3.5 million tons of rice. Nigeria needs close to 7 million tons, about 6.7 million tons of rice here. So KB alone cannot feed the whole of Nigeria. Aya, your question, please.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Oyalowo, also a few things.
But KB can do half of it, right?
You said KB will feed Nigeria. That's what you said, Mr. Oyalowo. Simple. You said KB will feed Nigeria.
I said KB can feed Nigeria.
Simple. Aya, go ahead with your question, please. Aya, go ahead.
Which means if you add to it, it will do that.
Okay, Mr. Oyalowo, let me ask you my questions. So the first thing I wanted to check was you talked about the indices for measuring poverty, saying that those who could feed themselves in the village had more money, and international organizations would come with yardsticks for measuring that. But that's quite curious, because the definition for poverty across different parts of the world, even from elementary, would say that if you lack access to the basic amenities in life, food, shelter, and clothing. So it's difficult to understand how the poverty levels haven't risen, whatever indices you use to measure it. So just to ask maybe perhaps what you were referring to, how else you were, you're measuring poverty. The other part of it where you talked about subsidy, the gains from subsidy, paying for loans. Remember that in the budget, the provision for subsidy ends May. By June, we should be, that's how much the federal government has allocated to subsidy. So there's no money allocated that you are saving, because there's no money at all to even pay for subsidy beyond that. So it'd be quite interesting to find out where money is still going to come from. And finally, just wanted to ask you in terms of security. The number one thing on the manifesto of the president-elect was to tackle insecurity. Yesterday's Guardian front page had the generals who had failed Nigeria in terms of security, and big on there was our current president, Muhammadu Buhari, under your party, APC. Terrible handling of insecurity in the last 8 years. How would your principal, the president-elect, tackle insecurity?
The first question was about
Poverty.
subsidy.
Poverty.
Okay, poverty. Okay, poverty. Thank God you said we use the basic definition of poverty, which is ability. I mean, to remove poverty is the ability to have a shelter, to have clothing, and to have food. Now, the question I would have loved to ask is that those people we mentioned in the villages, are they sleeping under the bridge? Are they not living in a house? Even if it's not a palatial mansion that you are used to, they all have homes over their head, which means that number one need and necessity has been met. Are they walking naked? I don't think so. They all have clothes on them. Can they feed themselves? Most likely, they have food on their farm. So that is exactly what I was saying. You just reinforced it. That they don't have $1 every day coming to them does not mean they can't feed. Does not mean they don't have homes. What we will talk about, or what we need to be saying, is that we must expand two things to them. One, education for their children and their world. Secondly, which is very important, healthcare. And who should do that? Like I told you earlier on, the state and the local government. The federal government will not build primary health centers. It is not the job of federal government. So if you have some of these indices not met, we must be questioning the right sources. If people can sleep in their homes, they have clothes and they are feeding, but they don't have access to education, to good water and road, is that what federal government should be doing? You are just answering my question. Most times we are not talking to the right people. The state government have failed them, and we must call these governments to order. Provide some of these basic amenities for your people so that they can have the basic, and you will no longer call them poor because they can have access to some of these things. Now, I'm talking about subsidy. I didn't say it will fund the student loan entirely. I was just answering Dr. Abati's question. Was it Dr. Abati or
Was Dr.
Rufai
Abati? You said that the
okay, it was
savings
Dr.
from
Abati.
yes,
I said
that
yes.
savings from
I said yes. Money will be saved.
To
now
pay for
money
the
will be
loan.
saved. What we need to clear here is whether it was provided for in the budget or not. You will still spend it. If, for instance, you provided for subsidy in the budget and you don't have the money, you will borrow to fund it. Is that not so?
So you saying you borrow to fund the student loan? So
The
are you
fact
going
that-
to borrow to fund the student loan is the question I
No,
wanted to ask.
no. You are not listening to me. Don't mix me up. What I am saying is that we are not providing for subsidy any longer, which means money must be available elsewhere. What I'm saying is that if you provide for subsidy, whether the money is available or not, you will borrow to fund that budget. But now we are not going to provide for subsidy again. So whatever money will have gone into subsidy will go to fund some other areas of our lives. And also, I also told you that we are looking at increasing our revenue, not just by growing the oil and gas sector, but also, not just by growing the oil sector, but the gas sector. And I explained to you that the pipeline being built is already on the way, and Asiwaju has promised to intensify work and ensure it is done. And I remember him clearly saying, I want to compete with Russia, because Russia for today provides almost the entire gas usage for Europe. Imagine if we are able to be the second alternative. Imagine how much we're going to earn from that. So it is easy to be despondent if all you want to do is to be despondent. But it is also good to be optimistic if you want to see that the cup is half full rather than half empty. And now to answer the final question of insecurity and security. Now, we also have to understand that the dynamics have changed from the 70s to now. It is easy to sit down and say President Buhari has failed. It is very easy to say it. But you must ask yourself, in what context? Before now, we do not have what we had in Nigeria today. In the context of what he met on ground, about 5 states were uninhabitable, and from the analysis of the landmass, a landmass the size of Belgium has been carved as a territory for some criminal element who say they are Boko Haram. Today, that is not the issue. We have had it morphed into some other areas. We have banditry and stuff. But they are being dealt with. The only problem I have seen is that everyone who like to talk about security and insecurity always pretend that we have no wins. It's only the losses. And so the moment one bad thing happens, it is a news. But for how long have we had what we used to have? You and I know, sometimes ago, people could not go to their farms and all this, even in the south. But today, the dynamics have changed. It is not as bad as it was. We will not win overnight. We will continue to win. Can you now say the American president has failed? Because as I speak to you today, they have had more gun deaths in the last 4 months than anybody has had anywhere in the world. Does it mean the president has failed? No. There are always going to be challenges. What you will ask yourself is, are we confronting it or are we running away from it? President Buhari has been the only man since 1999 that has invested more in military equipment and hardware than any other of his predecessors. So yes, we will continue to improve. We will have challenges, but we will not run away from those challenges. We will confront them head on. Where we fail, we will admit our failure. We will re-strategize.
Thank you very much for your time.
Insecurity and ensure that Nigerians are secured.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Ayobami Oyalowo. Indeed, we're not despondent, we're optimistic, but when we make promises, it has to be substantiated. That's what we're looking forward to.